Today we're going to be looking at Dissidia Final Fantasy NT. This game is a PS4 port of the 2015 Japanese arcade game that has finally made its way to consoles along with some extra characters and features that were not in the arcade version. It's also a follow-up to the popular PSP titles, both of which I was a massive fan of and have easily clocked in over 1,000 hours between them. It's for that reason that I was a bit apprehensive about some of the features of this game that differ from its PSP counterparts, and there's definitely some valid criticism to be made there, but after spending a lot of time delving into NT, I've been able to adjust to it and found myself having a pretty good time. Here are my thoughts on it so far. Let's get some things out of the way first. If you were a big fan of the PSP games, then there's a pretty high likelihood that you'll be disappointed with this game's story mode and lack of a dedicated way to play 1v1. Those two features were a pretty huge staple of those games, and if you were attached to that, or if that was the main reason why you enjoyed those games, then just know that Dissidia NT is more focused on other things. This game is built entirely around 3v3 battles, and while there is a way to set up your own lobby and play 1v1 versus a friend if you want to, outside of that, you cannot battle 1v1 at all, which is both hugely disappointing and sort of a mind-boggling decision in my opinion. Having played the PSP games as much as I have, I also really struggled to get used to the new mapping of the controls. While I've adjusted now, I still much prefer the button mapping of the older games, and especially prefer the way the dodge mechanic worked in those as well. But after about an hour of playing NT, it started to feel natural, and I was able to improve my play without thinking too much about the controls. For a while though, I kept trying to press R1 and triangle to dash forward as well as R1 and X to dodge. It's just muscle memory for me at this point. Using just L and R for those functions really felt weird at first. I think what veterans of the series will be most disappointed in though is the lackluster story mode and watered down RPG mechanics. The story modes were heavily featured in the PSP games and packed an absolute ton of content into them. You could get lost in those modes for hours and hours, and that's just not the case with NT at all. The most irritating thing about the story mode in this game is that you have to use what's called Memoria to unlock these story nodes, and those are for the most part just short cutscenes. The way you earn Memoria is by playing in either the offline Gauntlet mode, where you fight a series of 6 battles with AI-controlled characters, or by playing in online matches. So essentially, in order to progress in the story mode, you have to grind in other modes to earn this Memoria. I really don't know why anyone thought that that was a good idea, but in my opinion, story mode should be self-contained. If I want to play the story mode, I should just be allowed to do so, not forced to play other modes so that I can come back and do what I really wanted to do in the first place. The problem is that you don't get to actual battles within story mode for quite a while, so you really have to spend some time in the other modes before you can actually do anything in the story mode, which I think was a really misguided decision. There also isn't nearly as much depth in the customization of your characters here as there was in the PSP games. For one, equipment and accessories played a huge role in those games, and actually affected your stats when you put them on. That really isn't the case here at all. You can spend the gil you earn to unlock new costumes and weapons, but these are essentially skins, not equipment that have any effect on your stats. In the previous games, after unlocking new abilities, you could also customize your button inputs, essentially tailor-making your personal version of your favorite character to adjust to your own style of play. Even though you can unlock new abilities here, you can't customize which button inputs to assign them to. Again, if you were a fan of the PSP games and all of the features I'm talking about were essential to your enjoyment of those games, it's important to know that you won't find that here in NT. However, what you will find is that the core mechanics of the game are the same, and those core mechanics are still as brilliant as ever. The idea is that you want to use the circle button to execute brave attacks, which increase your bravery and decrease your opponent's bravery. The higher your bravery is, the more damage you'll do with your HP attacks, which are assigned to the square button. So if you get hit by your opponent's bravery attacks, it will decrease how much damage you can do, and you'll have to hit him or her with your bravery attacks to increase your bravery again. If you decrease their bravery enough, you can break the enemy, which will substantially increase your bravery and will leave them unable to do damage with their HP attacks for a short while. So the idea is to build your bravery as high as you can, then stick your enemy with an HP attack for massive damage. It's a pretty simple idea, but it's so much fun in practice, and it's every bit as addicting here as it was before. While I was opposed to the 3v3 battles at first, and still sorely miss a 1v1 mode, it does add an element of chaos to fights that's really exciting, and I'm actually starting to dig it. The maps will also spawn these crystals every so often that the players have to rush and destroy in order to build up the team's summon meter. When it's full, you can call your chosen summon to buff your team and give you certain boosts to your abilities. I think what I like best about crossover fighting games like Dissidia and Smash Bros. Are the little references to the games that the characters come from that will pique the intrigue of the players who haven't played those games before and make them interested in trying them out. The only reason I ever got into Earthbound, for example, was due to the fact that you can unlock Ness in the first Smash Bros. Game, and I had no idea what he came from. There are similar little references here that I thought were really cool. Some of the skins, for instance, where you can make the Warrior of Light look like the Red Warrior from the original NES version of Final Fantasy I, or unlock Cloud's Hard Edge weapon from Final Fantasy VII, or a Pluto Knight's uniform for Zidane, or Ramza's Virtuous Mercenary gear from Final Fantasy Tactics. It's touches like these that just made me think, wow, that's awesome. There's also a ton of music from these games that you can unlock, as well as icons and titles to use for your online player card and so on. Dissidia NT's big advantage over the PSP titles, though, is its online mode, which I feel was the real focus of this game. This is where I think most people are going to spend a majority of their time. I'll admit that I had a lot of fun playing online, and definitely improved a lot faster playing with other people rather than against computers. It's a lot more exciting to play against another thinking person, it always is. That being said, I did have a few matches with some major latency problems, one in particular that was totally unplayable. Square-Enix doesn't have dedicated servers for this game, which is a shame given it's 3v3 and invites a lot of opportunity for a couple of people with bad connections to ruin it for everyone. But it is what it is. For the most part, my online experience was smooth, and while I struggled at first to get a feel for the new controls, I got situated eventually and started playing really well. Which is a really good feeling when you're actually playing against other people, something you really didn't get in the PSP games unless you had a friend with the game and a PSP who could come sit in the room with you. Now you have access to thousands of players around the world, which is a great way to test your abilities and get better at the game a lot faster. Ultimately, Dissidia NT is a solid game at its foundation, based on the mechanics we've known and loved for a long time, and it's a lot of fun to play online. However, it's undeniable that the game is really lacking on modes, and avid fighting game fans will find that it feels really empty in that way. The way they handle the story mode here is disappointing, and it's too bad that they got rid of the depth of customization from the PSP titles, but I'm still having a good time with it, and after stepping away to make this video, I really just want to get back on and play some more. We'll see how long that lasts, and I'll keep you updated on my thoughts as I continue playing, but until then, I think the game is worth checking out if you're an avid Final Fantasy fan and want to battle online with your favorite characters from the series. Until next time, have a great day, and thanks for watching.